This week on NHRA Today, a visit with the top card in drag racing's deck. Running with force on a twisty street course, Division 3 kicks off at IRP, and how to play the delay box way. From Moroso Performance Products in Guilford, Connecticut, these stories and more on this edition of NHRA Today. It takes literally hundreds of components to make up a modern race car. And if any one fails to work as planned, the results can be devastating. More than one racer has learned the bitter lesson that a 20-cent part can ruin $20,000 of equipment in the blink of an eye. And with results like those, you now know why crew chiefs consider quality as important as quickness in selecting their hardware. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of NHRA Today. I'm Steve Evans. This week, our travels have taken us to Connecticut and the headquarters of Moroso Performance Products. Feast your eyes, gang, on the most comprehensive line of racing and performance parts anywhere on this planet. Over 3,000 part numbers. And in the next half hour, we'll show you a few of the ways that Moroso develops and manufactures its products. Plus, we'll spend some time with Ed McCulloch and his family, and we'll go road racing with that celebrity, John Force. It's going to be a jam-packed show, so let's get cooking with a look at what's hot. At this year's Gatornationals, over 100,000 people poured into Gainesville Raceway during the four-day event. But due to inclement weather, traffic flow into the facility was slowed and the spectator parking area suffered from drainage problems. To rectify this situation, NHRA recently announced plans to spend approximately $1 million on drainage and landscaping improvements.
The spectators love the sport. From a racing side of it, it's the equal of any motorsport in the 90s, and our facilities have to keep pace, so we have to make the improvements or we will fall back.
Shortly after that press conference, NHRA and Western Auto announced in Kansas City that the retail giant will be the title rights sponsor for the Grand Nationals in the Heartland event at Topeka in late June.
It will help us take what was going to be an already successful June event and just make it even greater.
We've got a great deal for Friday night. For $10, you get the special reserve seating, a pit pass, and some other special event promotions going right along with the race.
And that's what's hot. Like a lot of these success stories in this industry, Dick Moroso started making horsepower-enhancing oil pans in the basement of his home back in the 60s. Well, the company has come a long way since those days, but oil pans are still a very important part of their business. One of the most popular models is the Street Strip, which starts as a piece of flat steel that after 6 separate stamping operations is ready for the Moroso touch. On a CNC turret punch, the pieces that will make up the sump, or wrapper as they call it here, and the inside baffles are produced to tolerances of plus or minus 0.04 of an inch. The flat steel pieces are then formed on a precision press brake. Several different bends and folds are made, which will give it its ultimate shape and prepare it for welding. After being tack welded to the core pan, the piece is then ready for the fabrication process, where all hand welding is accomplished inside and out. Now, John Force didn't exactly weld the competition recently when he participated in a celebrity road race in Long Beach, but he did have a very good time. What do you get when you put John Force up against 285-pound NFL nose tackle Bob Golick?
Wow, he's bad.
4'9" gold medal gymnast Mary Lou Retton. And the MTV entourage, including Dan Cortez.
Yeah, quit standing on my foot. What's wrong with this guy? Well, see, he's very close. By the way, I want to say that I really, truly do. This is not a hype, because I race on the NHRA Winston Circuit against the McDonald's racing team, and I love your Burger King commercials. They are great. Brought a whole new thing into the life. My children. I eat there every morning, my favorite food.
Can I have $20?
And we have specials this week at Burger King.
Well, in addition to a ton of fun, you get the 17th annual Toyota Pro Celebrity Race. Before the Hollywood stars and racing legends actually took to the streets of Long Beach, a mandatory 4-day driver training program was held at Willow Springs Raceway near Palmdale.
It's the tightest fire suit I ever been in.
And although Forrest is forever joking, he and the 15 others took this course with all seriousness.
I made a couple statements after going to the Buck Baker driving school and being in a NASCAR, and I said it was a whole lot more physical stress here than mental. But I'm wrong about that. After being in competition and bumping fenders and watching people, windows exploding, I thought it was tough over where we were at. We're just trying to stay alive out here, believe me.
After a check for $60,000 was presented to the children's hospitals of Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Orange counties, all that was left to do was exchange strategies.
What are we going to do about this, guys?
Who?
Am I getting the part on the show if I lay down?
I already told you you're on. You are on and in.
Get last-minute words of advice.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for the support, gang.
Hey, no need to be nervous here.
I told John Forrest how to handle this. It's real simple. You can't run over him and knock him out of the way. Take the first left and go out on Ocean Boulevard and go to the Taco Bell and get a taco.
That'll work.
Climb into the race-ready Celica GTS liftbacks, buckle up, and
Okay, NHRA Winston drag racing. Here goes nothing.
pray. Celebrities, including the small screen's Crystal Bernard and the big screen's Cuba Gooding Jr., got a 30-second starting advantage over pro drivers the likes of Indianapolis Motor Speedway president Tony George and Formula One motorcycle champion Eddie Lawson. Oh yeah, Forrest. He started with the pros in the third position. Forrest's strategy was to lay back a couple of laps and let everybody else play tag with the walls like Mary Lou did. But as the pros got up to the celebs, it was he who tapped Crystal at the hairpin turn, sending her headlong into the guard wall while he and two others squeaked by. Eddie Lawson snaked his way through the pack and won the race. In 1952 Indy 500 winner Troy Ruttman gave Forrest a run for his money, but it was on the final straight where John met a real boy in the hood.
I thought this no-driving son of a gun will not get out of my way. I took him to the right, I took him to the left, back to the right, back to the left. Now I'm crashing the son of a gun, whatever it takes.
And as the final toll of the Toyotas was taken, Forrest, who finished 7th, emerged relatively unscathed.
And it was just a real exciting deal, and just to be part of it was really neat.
Well, John could race for a lot of years and not bend up as much sheet metal as they do here in a single week. Stay with us. When we come back to Moroso's, we'll show you some far more sophisticated oil pans. Welcome back to Connecticut, everyone. Building custom-made racing aluminum oil pans is a big business here at Moroso's. And here's one that's a little different. Notice how shallow that is. That's for a top fuel hydro, a drag boat. They don't have room for a big sump. And here's the typical pan on a top fuel dragster or a funny car. Notice it's a billet aluminum mounting rail. And here's a real trick little trap door that keeps the oil from racing away from the pickup under deceleration. Now this monster that would obviously have a windage tray inside it is typical of the big cubic inch General Motors Pro Stock or Pro Modified engines. And here's the latest wrinkle. This is brand new and designed by engine builder Gene Fulton. It's a two-piecer with the windage tray built into the bottom. You whip out about 10 bolts to check the bearings without ruining the seal on the front and rear main. Now oil pans have seen a lot of changes over the years. So is a particular top fuel driver I can think of. Here is Dave McClellan with a close-up look at the one they call the Ace.
Competing in his 20th season of NHRA competition, Ed McCulloch is the epitome of the professional drag racer. His career has spanned 5 decades, dating back to his teenage years, racing in the late 50s. McCulloch, dubbed the Ace in 1965, has proven time and time again that he's worthy of the moniker.
I used to race up out of the Northwest, and Jerry the King Ruth was a top fuel driver up there at that time, and a newspaper writer, a Bremerton newspaper writer, came up with the deal one day. We'd beaten Ruth a few times, and he says, you know, what beats a king but an ace?
Ed switched to funny cars in 1969, and by the time he entered his first NHRA national event, he was already a 10-year veteran. He continued to campaign a variety of floppers through 1991, taking 2 retirements from the sport, totaling 4 seasons.
Looking at the big picture, that it probably did me a lot of good. I know that I came back with a more positive attitude. You have to pace yourself, you have to know what you want, and you have to try to achieve the goals. And there's been so many things happened over the years. There's been the all-time highs and the all-time lows, and you know, you just sort of have to gain a balance between those two.
Despite several Driver of the Year awards and winning the U.S. Nationals 6 times, the one goal that eluded the ace was winning the Winston World Championship in funny car. His best outing was in 1990 when he finished in 2nd place.
There's always probably going to be a void in my life of not have won the NHRA World Championship, but my goal today is to win the championship in the Top Fuel Dragster, and we'll go from there.
Yes, in 1992, McCulloch returned to the cockpit of a Top Fueler owned by Larry Miner and tuned by Lee Beard, and the team racked up 3 wins in that first season.
When we started out, you know, there was a lot of unknowns. You know, how is Ed going to function in the Top Fuel car, and how is Ed and Lee going to get along, because they're both have got reputations, and it just doesn't appear like those two are going to mix. Lee and I get along extremely well.
And in the highly competitive world of championship drag racing, Ed relies on support from his wife Linda and their family.
Linda and my family are extremely good to me because they understand what I do, they accept what I do, and they don't put a burden on me, and I appreciate that.
Drag racing is our life, and I travel with Ed a lot, and only because I enjoy it. If I didn't, I suppose I'd sit home. But I do enjoy every aspect of it.
And of their 3 children, it's the youngest, Jason, following in his father's footsteps.
In my situation, like working with my father, it works out pretty good because I've never really looked at him as my own man. It's more like a friend to me than a dad. I could ask him for advice and get any kind of advice, but it's more of a friend to a friend, not a father to a son.
And from a guy who spent his life drag racing comes this advice.
I really think, you know, we look at the good old days. As far as I'm concerned, right now is the good days.
When an expensive racing engine is at stake, you can't have too many quality checks, which is why every oil pan here at Moroso is pressure checked to 10 pounds PSI to ensure that there are no leaks. Also, every oil pan is black checked to make sure that when the customer gets it, it fits exactly the way it should. According to a recent cover story in Financial World magazine, the nation's oldest business publication, the 1992 Mopar Parts Summer Nationals ranked 7th out of more than 1,000 sporting events in terms of promotional value. Companies involved with the event, whether as title rights or car sponsors, earned over $5 million worth of exposure during the telecast of that one race. In fact, 8 of the top 10 events were motorsports related. The article also pointed out that such figures explain why more and more companies are spending up to 75% of their marketing budgets on promotions rather than traditional advertising. Building chassis components is also important here at Moroso through their brand Competition Engineering. And joining me is longtime Moroso General Manager Bob Hone. And Bob, you guys are wasting no time checking out the newest in Camaros.
Steve, we try to stay on top of all the latest vehicles that come onto the marketplace that would be of interest to our racing customers.
Well, Camaros over the years have been good to you, the chassis builders.
They've been extremely good to us and to racing as well. The 67 is still a very popular body style, and we sell a lot of products for that.
And I'm sure a lot of those products were in action this past weekend at Indianapolis Raceway Park. Here's Bob Fry's Sportsman Report.
624 Sportsman racers converged on Indianapolis Raceway Park for the first of 6 Winston Drag Racing Series events in Division 3. One of those competing was the 1990 Division 3 Super Gas champion, Jeff Smith. But when Jeff is not at the track, he's known to the 8,000 people of Kendallville, Indiana as Mayor Smith.
I've been approached by the kids here in town. When I go out there on the track or go to the track, it's not Your Honor or the Honorable, it's just Jeff again, and that's what I like. I try and get the people around here to, you know, I'm just Jeff, and that's all I really want to be. This is the job, and I'll do that, but I still want to just be me.
Located in northeastern Indiana, Kendallville boasts a diverse manufacturing community with printing, food products, and automotive companies as the major employers. The city has a pleasant mixture of older neighborhoods and new subdivisions springing up. Last July, only 7 months after Jeff took office, a tornado ripped through this quiet Indiana town.
Probably the biggest thing that I'm proud of is the way we got things accomplished during the tornado and afterwards. We've got a lot of things rebuilt, a lot of things put back together, and even if the people are mad at me for a decision I've made or something that I've had to say no to, if push comes to shove, they're right there to help, and that's something I'm proud of.
But even when there's not a crisis, holding the office of mayor has put a big dent in what many racers need, and that's more seat time. Maybe that's why he's probably the only mayor in the country with a practice tree in his office.
I have that in the office so that when there are some dead times that I can get some time in for me. Now with this job, I don't have that much time to spend and give to it because I've got an awful lot of night meetings. There's an awful lot of days that I've got meetings going on to where I've got to be here.
Jeff won a close election in typical 990 super gas style.
Really, it was funny because it came out 994 votes. I looked at it as he broke out, and I was safe with a 994. So, I told my wife, I said, these 990s are good for us.
Before rain put a damper on this event, Mayor Smith lost his second round runoff race, and it was back to Kendallville to serve the voters. For NHRA Today, I'm Bob, the People's Choice Fry.
You know, racers that take spark plug wires for granted probably aren't going as fast as they should be. And believe me, here at Moroso, they take nothing for granted when it comes to their famous Blue Max spark plug wire. Whether it's pre-assembled sets or the universal kit where the customer cuts the length and puts on the distributor end, every inch of this wire is tested for continuity. That means that the electricity goes from one end to the other without interruption. Here now is Frank Hawley with the second half of his Fast Fact dealing with Sportsman electronics.
Last week we talked about the delay box and how it's used on a pro tree, but you can also use a delay box on a full tree in bracket racing. See, it's much easier for a driver to react to an instant stimulus like a pro tree than it is for him to count down those amber lights to the green and try and find the correct place to leave. So with the use of a delay box, the driver actually turns a full tree into a pro tree. And this is how. The 3 ambers take 1.5 seconds to count to the green. Now about a half a second of that is driver and car reaction, so we have to account for the other second. If I was going to race this car on a full tree, I would put a 1 second delay in the delay box. As I pull to the starting line, I react immediately by letting go of the trans brake button as soon as I see that top bulb. The delay box counts 1 second, then it lets the car go. Suppose I red light by 500ths. I have a 450 light. On my next run, I'll merely put more delay in the box, a 105, and try it again. This trial and error method allows the driver to adjust his reaction times depending on his particular driving style and the way his car works. Now this might sound like a real advantage except for one thing. Everybody's got one of these things.
Take a look at this beautiful new Moroso support unit. The racing manager, Howard Masalis, will debut at Memphis next weekend. Not even lettered up yet, it's so new. We, of course, will also be in Memphis for 2-day live coverage of the Goodies Mid-South Nationals at the times you see on your screen. For all of us here at NHRA Today, we'll see you then, right here on TNN.
NHRA Today is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.